Okay, so we can start our Q&A, the next session. And our guest is Paul Bush, the director of the film Orgiastic Hyper-Plastic. It's very nice to have you here in that online form, but still I'm very pleased for having the possibility to talk to you about your film. So at first, before I come to the questions, may I quote actually something from your film? So the sentence that appears in your film actually: I loved you polystyrene, vinyl, polycarbonate, polyurethane, nylon, polyester. I loved you all. It was beautiful while it lasted, but no, I never want to see you again. So such sentence crowns Orgiastic Hyper-Plastic. And I want to ask you, Paul, the first question. Was there any particular event or moment that sparked the making of the film?
Well, when I was making a film about 6 or 7 years ago called The 5-Minute Museum, I finished the film. The film was like a trip through man-made objects from prehistoric times to the present day. And it was generally stuff that you find in a museum, but I didn't know how to end it. So I thought I'd end it with stuff that you don't normally find in a museum, but the kind of one of the most modern artifacts, and that's plastic junk. And I did a little sequence, and it was only about 15-20 seconds as the final sequence of the 5-Minute Museum. And I really loved animating it. I loved finding all the junk. So it was in my mind for several years, because I made 2 more films in between, one day to make a film that was all animated plastic. So that was the main driving force behind it. And that gave me the first idea that I like with actually it's usual for me. It's an idea that I kept in my mind until it was ready in some way to be made into a film.
Mm-hmm. I also saw the making of the film, which is another story of our inseparable relationship between plastic and human beings. I saw you hunting the plastic in the sea, for example, and I want to ask you, how long did it take you to finish the film? Did you and also the question that popped in my head right after watching the film: did you ever count how many plastic pots of different shapes, colors, purposes you used in that film?
Collecting the plastic was a lengthy process. So I think I knew I was going to make the film. I'd started to collect plastic long before I actually applied for money for the film budget. So I was collecting it, probably plastic, for 2 years. But I would say the film production certainly didn't last more than a year. We got the money. It was a co-production with Denmark, and just moved off and made the film. Probably most of the shooting was done in 6 months. Most of the shooting and editing and animating was done in about 6 months. And as far as the quantity goes, I did count some. So I know I had about, over 500 knives, forks, and spoons that were all different, all plastic, but different color, different size. And I had over 1,000 bottle tops, but those are the only things I counted.
That's still a very impressive number. But your film, although it shows how plastic is flooding us, is still very aesthetically pleasing. And what was the biggest challenge for you? Collecting all the items, shooting. What made most made it difficult? If there was anything like that.
Well, what makes it difficult always is getting money for a film. So that's always the most challenging thing. But as far as the aesthetics goes, I really wanted to make the plastic look amazingly beautiful. I mean, I did a cut down version. I think it might be 2 minutes for Plastic Change, which is, I think it's a Danish-based organization trying to get us to cut down on plastic, particularly single-use plastic, and clear up the oceans and so on. And I made for them a free kind of web film, and I think we said, I'm just trying to find what the catchphrase on that was. But yeah, basically to give up plastic. That was the point of it. But we know, the phrase for them, the strap line was, "Are you still seduced by plastic?" So I wanted to make it look very seductive in lighting, and I built a light box, like a kind of light box you'd use if you were shooting a commercial, with soft light all the way around it to make the plastic really glow and look very beautiful, because it is a very seductive material, and that's what I wanted to show in the film.
I also want to talk about the technique that you used, like of animated photographs of stop frame animation of objects that we can see in Orgiastic Hyper-Plastic. So how long did you develop this technique, and what possibilities of artistic expression did it open up for you?
Well, it's a technique. This is a technique that probably I'm used for the last time, and I've used in about 10 movies, starting from the late 90s when I used this technique for the first time. And I have to say, then I thought that would be it. I would just, it was a film called Furniture Poetry. By the way, if anyone wants to see these, they're on my website, which is paulbushfilms.com. So I thought that film really satisfied all my interests in the technique. But then quite a long time later, 6 or 7 years later, I made another film using the same technique, which had hundreds, thousands of insects, each occupying a single frame. And then since then, strangely enough, this technique has really become a bit of a kind of language for me that I could use for many different types of film. So it wasn't my intention to use the technique more than once, but it became a kind of tool for me for expressing actually quite a lot of different ideas, which was very surprising for me that I could do this. And the technique is probably about a third of the film is animated in front of the camera. I did some, but most of it was done by a very good stop motion animator called Christophe Pelledin. And the rest of it is not exactly digital photographs, but it's basically animated digitally. It's photographed, cut out, sorted. I mean, for me, editing and animating are really the same things. It's just that editing, you do it every single frame. Animating, when you edit animation, it's every single frame is cut together.
Thank you for that detailed description. That's really fascinating, and I know that technique is very time consuming, so it's very impressive to actually see an animation composed of so many frames and so many elements. And maybe let's talk a little bit about the main topic of your animation. For example, at the climate summit in Glasgow, politicians are strengthening the agreement to fight global warming and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And your film is part of a canon of art that has been paying attention to ecology. And so, what ecological actions are you taking part in as a citizen to leave future generations a clean planet Earth?
I'm immensely depressed, not really depressed, because that's a different kind of mood, but I'm very pessimistic about there being any change, any likelihood of change in coming out of these political meetings. There's too much money and vested interest. Personally, I do the things I can do. That's slightly different from making films. But, like every citizen who's concerned, I do what I can to cut down on. But we're not really. To be fair, we're not really in a position even to know what we're doing has any effect at all, because it's very difficult to believe some of the actions that have been taken to actually affect climate change. It's so bound up with economy, and one should be probably quite cynical about things that you're told to do that will improve matters. It just partly depends who's telling you, but we're not really in control of that as individuals. But spiritually, one feels one has to do something.
Yeah, there's definitely this sad truth of the reality that is surrounding us. And are you currently working on any new experimental project? Can you reveal a little secret about what your next jobs will be about?
Well, I am doing things, but it's not very interesting to talk about projects that aren't made yet, because it's all very kind of theoretical and bad description. But I would like to say one other thing about kind of politics and the film Orgiastic Hyper-Plastic. It isn't really made from a political drive. I'm not expecting to persuade anyone about, the array of plastics is pretty extraordinary, and many of them have really positive uses. We've got to find things that if we want to get rid of plastic, we'll have to find things that replace material that's actually, very, very useful to us. So it was more a kind of homage to plastic, what plastic's done to us. And my lifetime's pretty much been in the plastic age, because I was brought up in the 60s, and that's when probably plastic toys became they took over from metal and wooden toys. It's kind of the great age of plastic, but it's a material that probably more or less will die when I die or before I die. So the film is more a kind of celebration of plastic. It's like a love affair that went really badly wrong, and now we have to give it up.
Thank you very much for those interesting facts and answers to my questions. That will be all from me. Again, thank you very much for being with us today. And I hope that we will have a chance to see again, maybe somewhere in the future, and maybe in real life. So fingers crossed for that, and thank you very much.
Okay, well, best wishes for the festival. It's a festival I've been to at least twice, maybe 3 times, but maybe with air travel, it's probably not a good idea to come too many times more. Next time I'll come by train.
Okay,
Bye.
we will be waiting for you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.